As Iowans, we are resilient. We are determined. We are committed. And we are strong. As Iowans, our strength grows when we empower one another. Iowa State University Extension and Outreach delivers education and information based in research for your reality. Because when you are strong, we all are strong. Here for you, now, always.
Hello, welcome. We've got our girl Andrea with us again. My name is Leah Phelps, and I'm the social media specialist for Iowa State Extension and Outreach. I'm remote today, and the heat is just kicking on, so I'm now trying to yell to make sure that I'm not being overridden by the furnace. So my apologies for the ambient noise. And like I said, we've got Andrea here with us, crisis outreach counselor from COVID Recovery Iowa. I also like to pretty much just say you're here really, we hope for the viewers, but to be honest, it's for me every time because I learn so much. And today we are talking about holiday stress. We are, I want to say tiptoeing, but it feels like we've hurdled our way. Like, how is it November 17th? Like,
right. Thanksgiving's next week. Excuse me.
I know, right? Like, what is happening? So we are right on the cusp of holiday, high time where it goes from Thanksgiving to all of the winter holidays. And we are in 2021. We are riding this pandemic wave. Honestly, I'm getting a little seasick, not gonna lie.
You and everybody else, we're all seasick.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, Andrea's gonna give us a handful of tips we can put into practice for that holiday stress. And yeah, just help us be good for ourselves and for those that we may be spending time with.
Absolutely.
So I feel like I'm gonna just pop myself off screen so that the background noise can minimize. And then for those of you watching now while we're live, you can comment questions. You can add just aha moments or other things to the chat. And then if you're watching after the live's over, you can still add those comments or questions. I'll make sure Andrea gets those. All right, let's jump right into it with our first. All right. We're going to talk about holiday stress, right?
Yes. So I think most people have a love-hate relationship with the holidays. We tend to have much more going on. We tend to get overscheduled. We have lots of expectations from family, of ourselves, of friends. Sometimes it requires, or the expectation is that we're around people that stress us out, like family members. Things are still not, we're still, like Leah said, we're still riding this wave of the the pandemic. And so that may still be affecting your holiday plans or how you're feeling about the holiday. Most people's work stress doesn't change during the holiday season. So this becomes an addition to rather than a substitute for. And at the end of the day, the holidays are supposed to be enjoyable. They're supposed to bring joy. They're supposed to be a time for us to partake in traditions and spend time together, whether that's with your biological family, whether that's with a chosen family. So don't, the goal I think for all of us should be, don't let the stress of the holiday season take the joy from you and take the joy that the holidays are supposed to bring. So first and foremost, like, it's supposed to be a fun time of year. So, let's try and make sure we remember that. So what can we do to prevent the holidays from stealing our joy and just becoming a dreadful time of year? A lot of it is about planning ahead. I know I've been in situations, and I'm sure Leah can agree wherever she's hiding off screen right now, that like sometimes my schedule just gets away from me. Like I'm not necessarily paying the most attention. And the next thing you know, I've got back-to-back meetings, and the hour I had for lunch is scheduled with something else. And before you know it, you're in over your head. And that's just regular life. You throw in holiday parties and family gatherings and shopping. And my sister and I just scheduled a baking day, for all the holiday goodies. You throw all that in, and it's very easy for you to get overwhelmed and overscheduled very quickly. So plan ahead. What are the expectations? What is your capacity to do things? Do we know when holiday gatherings are going to be? Do you have a work party? Do you have a friend party? Like what do you have going on, and when all of that is happening, so you can kind of have a better handle on timelines so that you're ready and not overwhelmed. And also being aware as you go into this and planning ahead that you may be at a family gathering where you're with family members that you don't necessarily get along with, or there's some tension, or maybe you just don't want to be around them. And so recognizing those negative emotions and acknowledging that they're there as part of that planning ahead process. Like, hey, Thanksgiving's going to be a rough day with Uncle Tom, but that we'll get through it, and this is how we're going to get through it. And this is, do I need to plan to leave by a certain time? Do I need to just make sure I don't sit by that person or be near that person? What are things that you can do to sort of navigate some of those negative emotions that may or may not come up? And knowing, in knowing those capacities and limits, like knowing where the line is. If your schedule is full and you can't add anything else, and you get invited to something or asked to do something, it's okay to say no. No is not a dirty word. I spend most of my career trying to teach people that no is not a dirty word. Please use it. Please set those, limitations for yourself. And when you aren't able to take anything else on, you're not able to take anything else on. Will people be disappointed? Maybe. Will they be upset? Maybe. But that's not necessarily your responsibility. Well, it's not your responsibility to manage their response. Your responsibility is to take care of yourself and make sure you don't overextend yourself through the holiday season. You can also, are there ways we can simplify things? Some of that simplifying is in saying no to things if you're overscheduled or you've got too much going on. But can you delegate things to other people? My sister is hosting Thanksgiving this year for the first time at her place. And she's inviting, it's going to be like her in-laws and our side of the family, and she's hosting for the first time. And so, she's already called me and was like, hey, can you make a pie for the day? Can you do this for the day? Can you bring this? She did the same thing with my dad, delegating those responsibilities so that she's not taking on, preparing a meal for 10 people all by herself with no help, passing off some of those responsibilities to other people and asking for help when you need it. And also, we, particularly those of us that celebrate Christmas or any of the holidays that involve gift giving, sometimes our gift list gets a little out of control, whether that's the number of people we're buying gifts for, whether that's the number of gifts we're buying per person. But, looking at that list and saying, can I pare this down? Can I look at, doing less gifts or something like that? Particularly with, I'm sure we've all been hearing a lot about supply chain issues and stores aren't going to have stuff. So we may not get a choice in paring down our gift list this year if we're unable to find things, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. It's less stressful. It's less on your to-do list. And I'll be the first to tell you, I love giving gifts and I love receiving gifts, but that's not the most important part of the holidays. So if that gets pared down a little bit and it alleviates some of your stress, maybe not such a bad thing. And taking care of yourself. I spend a lot of my time talking about taking care of yourself. And I know that gets to be a little cliche, gets to feel a little redundant. But seriously, it is the single best thing you can do for yourself is to prioritize your own well-being, prioritize your own needs. We know, and I think maybe I shouldn't assume most people know what that entails, but we've all heard it before, right? Like, make sure you're eating, enough food and eating healthy foods. That doesn't mean you can't have all the Christmas goodies. Have them, enjoy them. It's part of the season. But, balance that bowl of puppy chow with, some vegetables, some protein, something that's going to fuel your body and make it feel good. Making sure you're getting sleep and enough sleep. Adults, I think I've said this in every live that I've ever done with Leah. She can probably quote some of these things by now, but adults tell me all the time, well, as long as I get 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night, I'm fine. The research says you're not. The research says over and over again that you are not.
I have to jump in on that one because I'm like, well, and like I always do with your lives, I'm in the background clicking and typing and putting things up, and I'm like, yes, Andrea, yes. And this is one. So maybe I'll just stay on screen so everybody can see my aggressive head nod.
Please do. I love it when you're on with me. But research says time and time again, adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep consistently. You may be functioning on 5 or 6 a night, but that doesn't mean that that's optimal functioning or that that's really good for you long term. So doing your best. I get it. If you have small kids, if you have busy work, we all have occasions where we don't get that 7 to 8 a night, but that should be once in a while, not your norm on a nightly basis.
I want to kind of ask, what would be your recommendation? Let's say you are someone that is finding it really hard to get past that 5 or 6 hours of sleep, or whatever, amount it is, at what point is it you need to talk to a physician? You need to make the phone call.
Yeah. There are definitely some things you can do before we get to that point. So if you're having, and some of it depends, are you having trouble getting to sleep? Are you having trouble staying asleep? Is it not that you're having trouble sleeping? You just have too many things going on. And so you're staying up too late and waking up too early. You can kind of play around with some of that. One of the best things we can do for ourselves is get into a routine, like a bedtime routine. I always tell people, if you think about your kids, or if you have kids, I don't have kids, but I have kids in my life. Kids have a bedtime routine, right? At this time, we take a bath, we put on jammies, we brush our teeth, we read books, and then we go to bed. There's a routine that signals to them the end of the day is here, we're winding down, and we're going to go to bed.
Yeah. Something
happens when we become adults, and all the benefits we see of our children having bedtime routines, we're like, no, I'll just check my email 10:30, close the laptop, and get in bed. It'll be fine.
I'm not grown up. This doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. So, it's no, you can't. You can't just stop one thing and go to bed. We all need that, particularly if you're doing something like please keep in mind, I do not advocate working till 10:30 at night, but I know some of y'all are doing it. So you can't go from something that requires your brain to be engaged and thinking and working to transitioning to something where you're supposed to relax and go to sleep with no like transition.
Yeah.
Your brain can't do it.
Yeah.
And so having some kind of routine for yourself, like whether it doesn't have to be anything fancy, maybe it's, you know, a half an hour before you want to be turning the light off, you're gonna, you know, wash your face and brush your teeth and do some of those take self-care, like hygiene type things, and, you know, read a chapter or two out of a book. I do have some friends that you hand them a book and they think that like bookmarks and chapters mean nothing. Like if they start a book, they must finish said book.
Okay. Bookmarks are for quitters.
Yeah.
I'm not quitter.
I have friends that tell me that. If that is your mentality, reading before bed is not for you. That is not an activity I would recommend.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever that means, meditation, just something that indicates to your brain and your body, like, oh, we're winding down for the night. We're getting ready to get into bed. Another thing I know Leah and I have talked about a lot, because I remember Leah's reactions to certain things when I share them, is that your bed is for two things. Your bed is for sleeping and your bed is for sex. If you are doing other things in bed, other than one of those two things, your brain starts, like if you're watching TV, if you're like, I'm not opposed to reading in bed if it's like, you know, 15, 20 minutes. But if you're like working in bed, checking emails in bed, watching TV, your brain starts to associate those activities with bed, not rest. Like it's not associating rest with bed anymore. So you want to be careful about what and some people, I'm like, if you want to read before you go to bed, I would, you know, do all your stuff. If you have a chair, like some people have a bedroom that's big enough, they have like a little sitting area off to the side, or you have a little nook somewhere else in your house. It's kind of like a cozy place to read. Do that and then get into bed right before, you know, you're ready to fall asleep. So again, assuming your mentality is not bookmarks are for quitters. Like if you can read a chapter and put it down, then you can read before bed. But you know, coming up with some kind of routine.
And with holiday time, yes.
But
and holiday time typically takes us out. I was going to say, so holiday time sometimes takes us out of our routine. And I think probably 2 years ago that I did a live with one of our, you know, parenting experts where they talked about trying to still maintain some level of normalcy. And with children, it was more like if you're staying at a relative's house, you know, you're taking their favorite blanket or their favorite. So thinking, you know, as adults, we still need routine. So again, you know, making sure everybody's getting basic needs met. Like, are you eating? Is some of it food like your body needs, like some nutrients, some vitamins? Yeah.
Yes.
And are you sleeping? Are you making sure? And even leading up, if you know, like as you talked about, what was it, Uncle Tom?
Yeah. Uncle Tom,
and I feel like
Joe, Aunt Sally, we all have that one relative.
The bottom of the screen, I'm going to say no offense intended for Uncle Tom.
Right. No offense to anybody. I'm sure there's like I have relatives in my family named Tom and Joe and Dan. They're all wonderful people. It was just, you know.
But if you know you're going to be going into a potentially stressful interaction with family members, you know, making sure that you're going into it prepared, which part of that is making sure you've given your body what it needs. I think you talked a bit about it, but let's talk more about boundaries we could set for ourselves.
Yes.
And then others.
So boundary setting is like we're setting boundaries. Even when we say we're setting boundaries for others, it's about our well-being and what we can handle. And so setting boundaries for others is about what you are willing to allow or put up with from other people in your life. So if you are not, you know, maybe you have a relative that, you know, every time you see them, they're like, oh, you're still single? Or how's like, you know, how come you haven't, I'm sure the ladies watching this live can relate to this. Like, oh, you haven't found a man yet? You're still single? Like, yes, I am. So, you know, is it like, if that's not okay with you, you get to set that boundary. Now, I wouldn't suggest being sassy to the point of starting a fight at the family Thanksgiving, but just,
good note.
Yes, and that's okay. Or yes, that's not. I mean, you could even, depending on your comfort level, you could. You can tell people that's not really any of their business, because it's not. Or if you have, if there's a situation with a relative, maybe you guys had a disagreement or an argument or a fight about something, and you're willing to go to the family event, but it's just known, like, we are not talking about this.
We're not going there.
We are not talking about this topic. We are not talking about this event. We are not talking about politics. We are not talking about, like, you get to set those boundaries of, like, I'm not willing to engage regarding these topics or dealing with these things. And again, the person you set that boundary with may not appreciate that or like that, but that is not your responsibility. You are setting a boundary for yourself with that person to say, I'm not willing to discuss this. And the same
we
with,
had a comment. We had a comment that came in, and I think it ties in with some boundaries. And, again, your area of expertise is counseling, therapy. So, we're prefacing with neither one of us are, doctors or doing the research into that. But we are involved in understanding, the reality of what our numbers are in Iowa. So the question was, what is the state of COVID in Iowa? How do we plan gatherings around it? So what are some thoughts on how people could navigate some boundaries they maybe need to set or they need to enforce, need to communicate regarding COVID and just safety?
I think that is, probably one of the unique things about this year. Last year was unique in its own way, but a lot of us just didn't have, like, a consensus was we just aren't going to do it. We aren't going to have get-togethers. This year's a little bit different.
I know that
they were very, very small.
They did get very,
Yes. So it's that question of, now with, like, and I'm not trying to delve into any opinions on anything, but, we have like, people are vaccinated. Some people are not vaccinated. Some people are still not comfortable being in large groups. Other people are like, the pandemic's over. Let's just go back to, like, normal. And you get those differences within families. So, like, how do you navigate that? I think is something you first have to discuss within, I'm single, so I make that decision. I'm single and I live alone, so I make that decision for myself. But other people, you may have to discuss it with your immediate family, your spouse and your kids, or, and figure out what you guys are comfortable with. And then once you have that figured out, approaching whatever larger gathering you're looking at. Some families are like, if everybody's vaccinated, we're cool with it. It's fine. Everybody should be safe. I have people in my life who have said, my family is not vaccinated. They don't believe in getting vaccinated, and that's not something I'm comfortable being around. And so she has decided not to attend her family get-togethers. We have decided in our family for Thanksgiving, we are all going to, like, everybody who's coming is going to get a rapid test the day, like on Wednesday, before we get together on Thursday. Most of us have been vaccinated, but those of us that can't, we have a couple of kids that are either will have had their first shot or haven't been able to get a shot yet. So the adults are all vaccinated, but we decided we'd all be more comfortable if we just did the rapid test the day before. So I think there's a lot of ways, like, you first and foremost have to decide what you are comfortable with and what you feel is safe for you and your family. And then beyond that, navigating with family or friends, whoever you're spending the holiday with, to see, do we get tested, or do we gather in a place that's large enough we can kind of keep our distance from each other? Do we limit who's coming? I mean, do we
tell grandma to not kiss everybody this year?
Yes.
Grandma, if you could not, that'd be kind of cool.
And having those conversations, I think it is hard. Like, this question is hard because, it's, I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head. We are trending up again a little bit, which is somewhat expected because of, like, it's like similar to flu season. It gets worse in the winter because we're all inside breathing on each other. So COVID has trended up a little bit. Again, COVID cases. I don't know if that means it's just because we're all inside, we're spreading it a little bit more, or if there's another surge happening. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. But it is something that you have to take into consideration in your comfort for your family and the safety of everybody involved. And I think, much like last year, people are getting creative with how we do that, and getting those, getting tested or coming up with alternatives, or, whatever.
Yeah. I'll find some links, because I know there's a couple sites that, and I cannot think of if it's Iowa Department of Public Health, but there's a couple sites that show counties, and you can actually look at like more locally for you where your numbers are at, and that might be something to communicate to those if you have people traveling to you, or if you're traveling somewhere else, just take a moment, kind of look at a snapshot of that community, and that can impact your decision. Which actually, we did have another question about overnight guests, that some tips for reducing stress when you've got people coming and they're staying, like they're eating and then they're sleeping.
Yes. And then I'm stuck with them for 24 hours.
So like long term, longer than just a one night. What are some some thoughts, some tips for those long term visits?
I think these are, so some of it's going back to the routine thing. I strongly encourage that you preserve your space in your home for yourself. Don't displace yourself out of your bed or your bedroom, for a relative. I've had families before that are like, well, I just sleep on the couch because my parents are in town and they're older and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, super kind, totally understand, totally get the mentality that, like, you're younger, you can sleep on the couch, but you've now displaced, like, for a lot of people, your bedroom is like your safe. I mean, hopefully your whole home is your safe space, but your bedroom in particular is your sanctuary, even within your home. So I would encourage you not displace yourself. And if you can avoid it, don't displace your kids either. I mean, when I was growing up, the kids we always got booted out of our room for guests, and like that then disrupts your kids' schedule and their routine and what's normal for them. And so, if possible, I understand it's not always possible, but if possible, anybody who lives in the house probably shouldn't be displaced from their usual sleeping area arrangement, just to keep as much normalcy as you can.
That's a really good one. And I, as a parent, I can tell you that that's kind of like mind blowing to me, and really sad that I didn't think that on my own. I don't know. I just need a manual. This is why when you have a child, a manual should go with it. I don't understand. Because that's so true. Like, you're literally saying, here's your safe space. Here's the place you feel most comfortable. I need you to give it to this grown up that you see, maybe once a year. Really that's a good tip, and a really good way to show your children that you value and respect them, and their routine and their needs. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. My 6-year-old, I am so excited to see what this young one becomes. So we signed him up for basketball because, as all parents do, you sign your child up for everything. Yeah. And, you overwhelm their schedule and yours. That's
a separate live. We'll talk about that later.
You never know who's going to the NBA. Okay. And he was adamant after the first practice that he did not want to play again. And, as a good parent, I bribed him to go back to the next practice. And I said, you don't have to play, but we're going to watch. And so we sat there, and the whole time, look, your friend, look this, and you go try. And he looked at me, 6 years old, looked at me and said, Mom, you're telling me to do something that I told you I don't want to do. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's a very good point, buddy. And I said, you're right. I hear you. I said, let's go. And we walked out.
Yep.
And that's what this makes me think of is your children might communicate to you boundaries that they need you to set and to enforce for them. They might not want a hug, whether that's related to COVID pandemic life, or that's just related to them and their personality. Like, you might have to communicate some of those things and enforce them on their behalf. That's so yeah, the bed, that my mind's reeling now of all the not giving up your bed, your safe space of comfort, and also not of others that live in that home.
Yes.
That's good.
I would also kind of along with that, when you have people in your home, I think it's important that you don't put the expectation on yourself that you are going to entertain the entire time that people are there. If you have people coming in for Thanksgiving and you're having a huge Thanksgiving meal, and they're staying till Friday, it's okay if their options for breakfast are cereal and toast, if that's what you normally have for breakfast at your house. Just because you have people coming for an event and staying, maybe coming early or staying an extra day, does not mean that you have to be like in top hostess form the entire time they're there. You know, do the big meal, and then whatever you would normally do for breakfast, eat leftovers for, other meals. Like
Thanksgiving breakfast, the day after Thanksgiving, it's like it's turkey mash. I thought we were still eating.
Oh yeah. Totally. That's what we do in my family. I don't know what other people do with their family.
I have found green bean casserole to be good at all times of day. There
really
no
is.
time of day I don't want it.
Like, there's never a bad time of day for a turkey sandwich. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Demi,
our friend Demi put in the comments the link to CDC guidelines for safer ways to celebrate. So thank you, Demi. She's one of
Demi is like she is like so on with the links and the resources. She's amazing.
Okay, she also had a comment. She said, I love the idea of celebrating with people in other ways than gift giving. You talked about this a little bit earlier, and I love that, because whether it's money being tight, time being tight to go out and shop, or like you said, supply chain issues, it can get, if the gift giving is becoming this huge stressor in this supposed to be fun, time, then get creative. And so she said, maybe you're saying to somebody, instead of like exchanging gifts, it's, I really care about you. I love our friendship, or whatever. Let's grab a hot chocolate. Let's grab a coffee. Look at lights. She said, think outside the box. Literally. Oh, I like that. Think outside the box. And instead of spending money, or large quantities of money, get creative. An inexpensive experience. I like that a lot.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. And really, for a lot of us, if you think about, like, I could do a whole live on the 5 love languages.
And we will.
So now we've got the next one planned. But if you've never taken that test before, you've never heard of the 5 love languages, I would recommend that you Google it and take the quiz. It teaches you a lot about yourself and can help you understand the people around you. Gift giving is one of the 5 love languages, but for the majority of us, that is not our primary love language. So if it's not our primary love language, and it's stressing you out to have to buy all these gifts, like, why are we doing it? Like, express your love in the way that makes sense to you. And for some people, that's spending quality time together. For some people, that's doing things for each other. So, kind of trying not to get stuck in that overly commercialized representation of the holiday season that we have, about buying gifts and doing things.
So we had another question come in, and this is really good, because most of us are in the situation where someone that we care about that maybe normally would be at a meal might be in, a long-term care facility, or maybe potentially in the hospital. So, and that can be stressful, emotional. You can feel the absence of that person.
Yeah.
So what are maybe some thoughts on how we can, walk in that situation?
I would say, first and foremost, acknowledge their absence, acknowledge that everybody's feeling that absence. I think a lot of times the worst thing we can do is try to just trudge forward like things aren't different. And they are. And chances are, if you're missing that person from the holiday celebration, everybody, or at least other people, are missing that person from the celebration. And, so acknowledging that feeling. And if it's that, and if I know oftentimes, especially with long-term care facilities, it's that stress of, stopping by and checking on them and making sure they have what they need. My mom was a primary caretaker for her mom, even after she was in a facility. It was like every day we stopped by, and that's stressful in the middle of July, let alone around the holiday season. But if it makes you feel better, can you, I don't know, leave a decoration in their room or leave something in their room that reminds them that you're thinking about them and you're missing them, or maybe put up something extra or special in your home, or have something as part of the meal that reminds you of that person, to kind of bring their presence in a different way if they can't physically be there. I know long-term care facility, like when we're talking about elderly people, it gets kind of tricky with technology, but always, FaceTiming or trying to do a video call of some variety with them, just to at least say hello and see their face on that day. All of that aside, those are some tips on how to balance that stress and have their presence at the holidays. But having a family member in the hospital is stressful on a whole bunch of stress that comes with that, whether it's the holidays or not. And so I think that goes back to, like, you've got to acknowledge those feelings. You've got to take care of yourself through that. If you have a loved one in the hospital and that's affecting your holidays, maybe that means you can't do the big baking day that you normally do this year. Like, your stress is just too much, or maybe it's back to, like, I'm paring down the gift list because I just don't have the capacity to shop for everybody because I'm stressed out about these other things. I think a lot of it, when you have those extra stresses, comes back to, if there's additional stress or if there's something different about this year, then you can't just continue on like it's a normal year and everything's the same as it's always been. You have to adjust. You have to acknowledge your own limitations, and adjust accordingly. And it's okay. Like, will you miss, like, if you don't do something this holiday season because of the other stresses, will you miss doing that? Maybe, but there's, will hopefully be next year, and it, taking care of yourself is the most important. And if you're really missing, so don't cut out the things you're really going to miss the most, start with the things you're going to miss the least and cut those out if you have to.
Right. And sometimes, there's, thinking through a parent lens, there's things that I do that I think matter to my kids. Some of them probably do, and others they probably could care less about. So, even having that conversation if you are living with other people, having that conversation of, hey, Thanksgiving's coming up. What are the foods, or what do you think of at Thanksgiving, like, that needs to be there? Like, again, I'll go back to green bean casserole, because I will go there every time. Always go to the green bean casserole. Like,
there must be green bean casserole.
Not everything else, but I gotta have that. But for your children in your life, for your partners, extended family, making sure that you've prioritized those. And another comment came in, and I think this is more about ways that you could, if gift giving is causing some anxiety or you need to set a boundary, this is another idea. But I even thought of, in relation to, if you have the family members or friends in care facilities, hospitals, maybe you are able to serve either that facility by, maybe it's collecting donations that are needed, or maybe it's like, I'm thinking of like hospital staff that are giving care for your family. Maybe it's making sure that they've got some cookies or coffee or something that you can do that honors this person that you miss, that acknowledges that they're not there, and that coming together for you guys that are, able to maybe meet, where you come together to make this thing happen. That there's a huge building. Good. It's a good feeling. It's something that would be remembered.
Yes. I mean, I think, like, I'm not like one of those toxically optimistic or positive people. I like to think of myself as a realist. That being said,
that you like watch horror movies.
I do. I love it. Horror movies and true crime is where my sweet spot.
Toxically positive person.
But I mean, I, the interesting thing is like the last 2 holiday seasons, I mean, we'll see what this one brings. We're just at the start of it, but I'm like, the last year and a half, 2 years, I mean, let's be honest, they've sucked for a lot of different reasons. They have sucked. That being said, I think in the face of not being able to do what we've always done, people have like the creativity I've seen in people is just insane. Like this world is full of some extremely creative people who have come up with different ways to celebrate and different things to do when you can't do the things we've always done. And I think that will be amazing, like for years to come, that if we can sort of shift away from this expectation that we like go into debt and overextend ourselves through November and December.
Right.
So yeah, like take this opportunity as an excuse to be as creative as you can be and as creative as you want to be.
Absolutely.
And do the things differently so you don't feel as much stress, hopefully.
Yeah. So we're kind of winding down. I think we've gotten to our comments and questions and double checking that I don't miss anything. So because it just feels right for me to share a couple of resources like Answerline I'm going to share, because this is a time of year when I think people that don't know about Answerline need to know about Answerline. So Answerline is an extension resource, and I'll throw a link in the comments as well. So you call this number and a specialist answers, and then you ask them a question and then they answer your question. Your question could be, I bought a, okay, I'll give you a hypothetical. Like hypothetically in 2020 when
Is it really hypothetical though?
Hypothetical, Andrea?
Okay.
When my mommy did not buy the ham for Easter. I was in charge of that. I mean, hypothetically, somebody was. And I did an online grocery order, and it felt right to order 24 pounds of ham for 5 people.
It's a lot of ham.
I could call Andrea and I could say, now, how do you freeze 20 pounds of ham? Because it turns out we only ate 4 pounds of it. And they could tell me how to freeze that much ham.
Yes.
They could also give me some great recipes for ham. So yeah, this is a time of year where you're going to be baking and cooking, but also cleaning and organizing. And so all of your home and family needs, if you call this number, you are going to be connected to a real life person, a specialist that's going to be able to find resources that are research-based, solid answers that they give you. So it's not just like having to randomly Google and hope, after you read through the 3-page blog post before you get
right.
So Answerline, exactly. Answerline is a number to probably save in your phone. There is a link. You can do some messaging as well, but I like the phone call because I like to hear them laugh when I ask them my question. No, I'm just kidding. They save their laughter for when they hang up. Also, Iowa Concern. This is another extension resource and another number that I think is valuable for everyone to save within their phone. This is 24/7. Every day, every hour, you will be connected to a specialist that is here to support the stresses that you may be having. So they do a lot of, they'll do kind of normal day-to-day stresses. Like it could be this, I'm overwhelmed as the holidays approach. I'm nervous about these get-togethers. You can call this number. Again, they're going to provide you with resources that are research-based. It could be some financial concerns. I don't know how I'm going to make everything happen that needs to happen. Yeah. You can be connected to a finance specialist, talk about budgeting, talking about your options. They'll link you up with support that's available even locally in your community. And they also have the ability to make sure that you have some legal opinions and some legal support if needed, that you can ask questions to attorneys. So, it could be things like rent or farm-related, land-related questions. So Iowa Concern is a really, really good phone number, but just a place to go when you're just feeling like those stresses that most of us have, but sometimes they just get heavier than we can carry. Iowa Concern is where you can give them a call. And Andrea is with COVID Recovery Iowa. I'm going to also put their number in there. COVID Recovery Iowa. Why don't you give a little bit of an overview of what they are and what they offer?
So COVID Recovery Iowa's phone number is actually the same as Iowa Concern Line because they are the hotline that we are utilizing for COVID Recovery Iowa. So for either one, Iowa Concern or for COVID Recovery Iowa, you can use the same phone number. We offer a variety of things, like if you're just super, like the questions we had about like, I'm still worried about COVID or I'm concerned about this, like what do we do for family get-togethers, that kind of stuff. They can direct you where to find the most accurate and up-to-date information on like numbers and stuff like that, like COVID numbers. And what like the CDC is currently recommending and stuff like that. They can provide that information. They can also help you get access to resources if, you know, maybe your rent problems are somehow related to COVID or you've been unemployed or whatever's going on there. So they can do a lot of that. We also offer, like, if you're like, dude, I'm just stressed out. This COVID thing's really throwing me for a loop. I'm not sure about the holidays. I really just want somebody to talk to. They can get you connected with someone like me that works for the program that can do some like one-on-one brief, just chatting and supporting kind of stuff. We offer some, you know, stress debriefings. If you work for a company that like, holy cow, it's been a stressful couple of years and everybody's just kind of at their wits' end. We have people who can come in and just sort of lead a debriefing for everybody to kind of talk about their struggles and express how they're feeling. And
which is pretty much what you do every time we do a live. It's just my
It's true. It's like Leah's personal debriefing.
Right.
So
yeah,
but yeah, and we also have educational programs. We also have, I've done a variety of presentations on a variety of topics, and to present to groups, groups of employees, groups. I mean, if you have a group and you need somebody to come talk about holiday stress, depression, anxiety, stress management, but anything kind of that on that mental health side of things, we either have a program we can do or we can put something together for you. So if you're looking for something like that too, we can certainly provide that. So
yeah, I know you and some other staff through COVID Recovery Iowa, you've done like large group, like presenting to hundreds of people. You've also done more small, you know, at a local library with like, so yeah, absolutely. And I did put the website, there we go, in the link. And Demi commented, I'm going to have to take this to our answer line specialists because I think this should be their new tagline, sharing resources when needed. I like it. I'm in it. Now, and Andrea, I think before we hop off, I just have to say nobody came in the comments about our haircuts. So I would like.
September was a long time ago. Nobody's seen us since September on a live.
I have been waiting, 47 minutes and not a single comment being like, come on, guys. Like,
this is how like in sync that you and I have become, is that within the same week we both went and chopped all of our hair off.
And then surprised each other when we jumped on here. We're like, oh. Right. We got Julie got us fabulous hair.
Thanks, Julie.
And I set my boundary. I told you all what I needed, and then
exactly.
And I got
asked for what you needed. They've kindly obliged. Everything is good.
All right. Well, as always, thank you so much. Incredible tips. Saying no is okay. Setting boundaries for yourself. Communicating those boundaries as you are needed. I think a huge takeaway for me, if you have people come into your home, especially if they're staying the night, don't displace yourself. Don't displace the children that maybe live in the home or anybody that lives in the home. Keep your space as safe, secure as and get some sleep. Goodness.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
So we'll log off here and maybe like a little cat nap. Maybe get a little cat nap in.
Excellent. Y'all have 11 minutes before lunch is over.
Right. Yeah.
Quick cat nap.
At lunch.
Yeah.
Who does that these days? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you're watching this after we've left the live, this is recorded. Throw those questions, comments, and I'll make sure that Andrea sees them. I'll provide you with some answers. I'm mainly just here for the well-timed jokes. So I'll ensure you get a real answer. But yeah, happy holidays as this season starts. Take care of yourself and reach out to your local extension office. They have so many resources. Pretty much any question you've got, they're going to have a resource or a specialist that they can connect you with to get you what you need. All right, Andrea, have a great day. Your hair looks amazing.
You too.
Just
Yours
love
looks
it.
amazing too. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.